Mikey, you're looking a little crispy over there. Like some chicken fried motherfucker. Yeah! Thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, once again in the horror corner. And we are continuing our look back at the beloved Halloween franchise. And this week we are taking a look back at the final entry of the original franchise, and that is Halloween Resurrection, directed by Rick Rosenthal, and starring Bianca Kajlich, Busta Rhymes, that's right, I said Busta freaking Rhymes, Thomas Ian Nichols, and Jamie Lee Curtis in her last performance as Laurie Strode. Now, before I get into my review of the film, I would just like to say that this particular entry is the most reviled entry in the history of the franchise. It's pretty much universally despised by critics and fans alike, and I am one of those people. Now, when I went to see this film in theaters, I actually didn't think it was that bad. And that's pretty much because of the atmosphere of the theater I went to. There's a lot of young kids there, and they were all screaming, and they were really into it. But I didn't realize how bad it was until I got it on DVD and was able to analyze it and watch it several times, and I realized just how bad the film is. So, as we begin with the events of the ending of Halloween H2O, and that's the final showdown with Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. As we saw, we thought it was a very final showdown, as we saw Laurie take an axe to Michael's head and chop his head right off, and that was it. We thought that was the end of the franchise. Wrap it up, people. But apparently the film did so well and was very successful, so, you know, when there's money, there's got to be another film. So they enlisted Rick Rosenthal, the director of the original Halloween 2, the great Halloween 2. So what the hell happened with this one? I got excited too when I heard Rick Rosenthal. I was like, I love Halloween 2. But sadly, I was very disappointed. Why? Because this movie seems to be very much a product and a cash grab. And that's what it feels like. They knocked it out real quick and didn't put a lot of thought into it. And the acting is terrible. You won't care about a single one of these characters, even the main character played by Bianca Kajlich. You don't even care about her. And she's the heroine of the film. She's like the final girl, if you will. But at any rate, again, getting back to the story, we find the way they explain the events of the ending of Halloween H2O is that Michael actually grabbed one of the paramedics and took his clothes, knocked him out, and threw him in the back of the ambulance. And that's when Laurie drove off with thinking that it was Michael in the back of the ambulance, when it actually wasn't. It was actually one of the paramedics that Michael knocked out. So when Laurie killed the guy and took the guy's head off, that they considered that murder, and they thought she went crazy, and they threw her in a sanitarium, just like Michael used to be. So they thought she was criminally insane. So at the beginning, we see Laurie in the sanitarium, and they're giving her daily medication, and they give her pills, but we find out that Laurie's just hiding the pills. She's not really taking them. She's hiding them in this little teddy bear she has. And, we see she's really wound up. Like, she believes that Michael is still alive. She knows he's still out there. And guess what? He is. And she sees Michael actually outside her window of the sanitarium. And Michael breaks into the sanitarium, on the lookout for Laurie Strode. He wants to end it once and for all. And Laurie chases her to the rooftop of the sanitarium, and they have their last and final showdown. She catches Michael up in this rope, and Michael gets hung upside down right over the roof of the sanitarium, ready to fall to his death. And she grabs Michael's knife, and she's saying, "What took you so long, Michael? Let's end this once and for all." And Michael Michael starts grabbing his head like, oh, he's all traumatized and crap. And we're supposed to feel sorry for him. And Laurie starts to sympathize with him. And that's when he reaches out and grabs Laurie and throws her over the side of the building and is holding on to her and stabs her in the back. And Laurie gives him a little kiss and says, I'll see you in hell. And she falls to her death. And that's the end of Laurie Strode, the end of that chapter of the struggle between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. And I gotta say, I love that scene. I was like, wow, this is gonna be a really good movie because it started off really good. And I enjoyed that scene very much. And I also gotta say, I like Brad Loree as Michael Myers. I thought he did a solid job. And they brought back the whole heavy breathing thing. You can hear him breathing heavy, just like in the original Halloween from 1978. I thought that was a pretty cool aspect. And but that's where the fun ends. Then we get into the real plot of the film, and that is when we meet Busta Rhymes. And he is the head of a group called Dangertainment, and they produce reality TV series. And they're making a new series, and they want to set it at the Michael Myers house where he grew up in his childhood and where he killed Judith Myers all those years ago when he was 6 years old as a child. I guess the deal is they want to bring these bunch of teenagers together and have them live in the original Myers house and see what happens, see what kind of trouble they get themselves into, see what kind of crazy stuff they can find in the house. And that's basically the plot of the whole movie. And so you see these teenagers going through the house, looking for stuff and trying to get in some kind of insight inside the mind of Michael Myers, what kind of childhood he had, and what led him to commit these unspeakable acts. And so that's what happens. They kind of find all this crazy stuff that, like messed up toys that are all screwed around with, and they show his crib as a child, and there was like a chain in there, like they chain trying to say they chain Michael up as a baby or something. But we find out that these are just props to set up the reality TV show to make it more interesting, to make it edgy, and and those were all planted there by Busta Rhymes. And also Tyra Banks is in the film. She works directly with Busta Rhymes to produce this TV show. And basically she's just there to look hot. There's no reason for her to be in this movie. There's no reason for Busta Rhymes really to be in this movie other than, he's some famous guy. But at any rate, what happens is Michael Myers sees these fools at his house invading his home where he grew up. And he doesn't like it very much. He doesn't take too kindly to these invaders in his household. So Michael shows up back home to take revenge on these foolish teenagers messing around in his house. And he picks them off one by one in classic Michael Myers fashion, as only he can do. And it's very rudimentary the way they film it. They use that TV reality series as an excuse to set up tricky camera work and fancy little Hollywood magic, and that's all it is. It's Hollywood hack nonsense. That's what I see it as. And there's just no suspense. There's no scares. There's a lot of silly stuff going on. We see Busta Rhymes performing kung fu on Michael Myers. He's taking a broomstick and swashing her around like he's Bruce Lee or something. And karate kicking Michael Myers through a damn window. Is that what we are? Is this a Scooby-Doo episode or something? What's going on? And that's basically the gist of the whole movie. Just a lot of silliness going on with these stupid teenage characters that you couldn't care less about. The acting is awful. There's no substance to this movie at all. So how can we invest in these characters when we don't give a damn about them? We don't give a damn about what happens to them. We don't even give a damn about the star of the film. So there's just nothing to care about in this movie, and that's why it's considered the worst in the entire franchise, because it's lazily directed, it's lazily produced, and it's very sad that Rick Rosenthal, who directed the great Halloween 2, could make such a terrible film like this. But unfortunately, that's what we get, folks. Trick or treat, motherfucker. That's the kind of lines we're treated to. It's really Bush League, and it's sad to see that the Halloween franchise has gotten to that point. So that's why they had to basically reboot it with Rob Zombie's Halloween. Because this one is so damn bad. That's why they had to reboot it. Otherwise, who knows what could have happened with the series. Some might say it should have ended at Halloween H2O, which I thought I would have been happy with that, but we know how Hollywood is. As long as the movie's making money, they're gonna keep making them. They're gonna keep knocking them out forever, until the money runs dry, until the well runs dry, if you will. So I give this film no devil horns. No devil horns up. None. 0. So thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, at the Horror Corner. And this is the review for Halloween Resurrection. Thank you for joining me, folks. Tune in and stay scared.